I mean, they're more on cat welfare, but
I think,
it's a little off tangent. But I mean, keeping that in mind about comparison, about how do you want to get your message across, it's quite important, first of all, to know what your objective is. The reason why I'm asking for very specific, like what kind of cause you have, is because you need to know your objective. Somebody asked, Sean, like, how do you know if you're successful or not? You can only rate your success based on certain things if you know what your objectives are. And he stated right at the very second slide, his objective, his goal. That's very important, okay? We're going to just keep that in mind. What is your goal? Be specific, if you say campus, campus can be so many things. I work on campus sustainability issues. It's a little bit different from student welfare on the campus, and this is something that I don't learn, it's from trial and error. We don't know this from the very beginning. Some people will focus specifically on marine conservation. Some people will do like terrestrial. I'm actually all over the place, and I've kind of decided my goal is to just provide more in-depth analysis rather than, some of the others that I'll show you later. So there are different types of forms of blogs. Am I blocking? Sorry. You need to choose the right, form to fit your objectives, right? I mean, if you have a circle, don't put it in a square. So it's quite important, and we're constantly evolving, as you can see. Just to give you a little background about the environmental scene in Singapore, it really started, very Web 1.0, so you have your standard HTML text kind of websites. As a lot of people will say, back in the 90s, the environmental movement was really going forward and people being called up by ISA. I mean, you would think that only political people get called up by ISA, but back in the days, environmental people were seen as a sense of dissent, and the president of the Nature Society was being called up by ISA, God knows why. But nowadays, things are a lot better for us. That's why I say we're not doing anything as exciting as Malaysia, because I can pretty much sit in front of my computer, have my name known, my department known, my job known, because it's considered a little bit more safe, because people are more aware of environmental issues now as well. So there's a couple of reasons why it's all pushing, quite positively for environment stuff. So it's a bit unfair for me to stand here actually to say, all the good stuff we've done, but the revolution now is actually to engage the common people. It's no longer about engaging people who are converted. I think Alex mentioned this. In the beginning, you'll be talking to converted. Slowly, you'll be talking to people who don't really know what you're talking about. And it's the unconverted that's the biggest frontier out there, that you need to reach out to these people who may not even care, right? So one of the things that actually propelled the web revolution for environment is actually crisis. I don't know if you have heard of Cik Jawa. Who has not heard of Cik Jawa? Okay, so you have, then great. You're a very informed crowd. So Cik Jawa really happened because it was going to be reclaimed, and the government actually postponed reclamation. Then they attribute it to public, feedback, right? But how did this public feedback come about? Because if nobody spoke up in the first place, there wouldn't have been any sort of, the government wouldn't even stop to think, okay? So there was volunteers, and they actually, mobilized people to volunteer, to guide people, to spread the word. And how did they mobilize? They actually used Yahoo groups, and back in the days it was like e-groups, or it's really, really back in the days. So they had, a website. There was no fancy blog. There was some form of a blog, but it was updated manually. There was no blogger. So what happened was that, oh sorry, just go back. If you see the picture at the back, Cik Jawa was actually the event that had the most people in Singapore mobilized to see a nature area before it's gone. Within 2 days, they got like a few thousand people. It's the first time you actually get that amount of people, for environmental sort of reasons. And it's got no freebies. People were there actually to see it before it was gone. They made videos out of it, like movies, films, websites, books came out of it. And these are things that it's the same for the web. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So generating content is one of the reasons why you want to have a blog as well. This is during Cik Jawa, one of this lady called Ria Tan, okay, she really propel herself forward to be very active, doing environmental work because of Chek Jawa. She was so inspired, she co-wrote the book on Chek Jawa, the guidebook, and because of that she realized there's such a lack of information online. When you search for like coral reef Singapore previously, you get nothing. You get Malaysia or you'll get Indonesian reefs. You really get no information. But nowadays, if you Google for like coral reef in Singapore, you get Singapore sites with Singapore pictures talking about Singapore stuff. Okay, so your blog actually is helping to generate content about Singapore, which is such a small place, on the internet. Okay, that is very important, especially if you're talking about migrant issues, for example. Who knows, right? If you don't talk about it. So what happened is that this was Web 1.0. She actually did all of this, which looks very 2.0. She did it manually. Every day she updated manually. It was horrible. So more recently, I helped her to sort of update it to be Web 2.0. You know, your widgets and stuff. Now, here what you have is wild blogs. This is not written by her. It's every single other person. She got the 50 friends, to write, and then she aggregates it. So from a blogger who aggregates news from mainstream media, she became aggregating other people's blogs, and she also writes her own blog, and she also writes, just fact sheets introducing you to places. So in a way, she really managed to create people like, okay, Ashton Kutcher, okay, got 1 million followers because he was big already. She wasn't, we started with nothing. How did we get so many people? I mean, one of the ways really what, Cynthia has talked about and Sean has talked about. All those strategies are fantastic, and I feel like I'm repeating what they're saying. So I'm actually going to just say that, it started from the ground. She was working the ground, and then from there, they had emails, people know about it, and it became a blog, and people started to look for it. And now if you just Google for nature events, a lot of time you'll get Wild Singapore stuff. So the revolution continues. And you see that it actually says user-generated content. And we're really trying to get everybody to do it. And I actually run blogging workshops for nature volunteers. The strategy is just like Malaysia. We told our volunteers who may be like, 70, maybe not so, 60, and a lot of them have a lot of content, a lot of information, but they don't know how to blog. Okay, or we have young children. What are their perspectives? We don't know. And so I actually put together blogging workshops to teach them how to put their thoughts and whatnot online. There's a heritage website called yesterday.sg. It has one of the oldest bloggers there. And these are people giving you stories that you wouldn't know because you weren't born yet. And it's about generating content, so it's really fantastic, and we really quite a turnout. That was for young people, and we actually combine it with real life actions. So that's quite important. So keep that in mind. Blogs is just an easy way to publish a website. Recently we had International Year of the Reef. We got together a whole bunch of activists, and they were like, just pulling their hair out trying to just think of a website. And we're like, why are you worrying so much? You don't need big budget. You need blogger. You need some free volunteers like me and Ria, and then we just put up a website overnight, and all of them were like, oh wow, what happened to big budget websites? So forget about that. It's just an easy way to get something out fast, which is important especially when you have a big crisis kind of event. You just want to get something out. So putting the information out there, sometimes you just want to let people know, like I said, about Singapore stuff. So what we actually got is, once we have these volunteers blogging, we tell them every time you go out to the shore, to the coral reefs, for example, just record down what you see, okay? And this can apply for almost any other kind of causes. Say for example, cat welfare. I just have to use some example, right? Okay, today you went to have a conversation with HDB or the town council about certain thing. Blog about it so people know what happened, what transgressed. Transgressed. And if you see, migrant workers, take photos and just, document it. It's a documentation, getting it known, right? That's just one thing, getting it out there. But there are facts, and then there are facts. I tend to forget that this is my blog about Pulau Ubin, and I write about stories because, it's a heritage thing for my family, because it's personal. My family is